Welcome to American Dream Latin Souls. I'm Daniel Ortiz, and today my guest is entrepreneur JoAnn Erikson. JoAnn, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Daniel. Thank you for having me.
Now, JoAnn, you have a real interesting story. You are the founder and president of JoAnn Consulting. Is that right?
Yes, JoAnn, W-O-N.
Okay, JoAnn Consulting. Okay,
Yes.
so that's telling about what you do.
Exactly.
And you're a very interesting story because you are a Latina from a small town who's making a big impact in the legal profession, which has been in a man's world. Would you agree?
Typically, I would say it was a male-dominated profession. I don't know in terms of jury consulting or being a jury consultant, but certainly the legal profession historically has been a male-dominated field.
Okay. So before we get into the story, we're going to ask you the question we ask every entrepreneur who comes on the program. JoAnn, what is your American dream and what does it mean to you?
Well, actually, Daniel, I'm living the American dream. I really, truly am. I mean, how many people have the opportunity to wake up every day and say, I love what I do. And I truly do. I mean that from the heart. I love what I do. I've been given opportunities to run my own company, to work with people that I enjoy working with, to be able to express my opinions about things and people actually take me seriously and listen to me. But can I tell you what my ultimate American dream would be? My ultimate American dream would be to be a recognized philanthropist.
Okay.
I would like to someday have the opportunity to give to those less fortunate. And I hope someday to be able to realize that.
Okay.
And I'm hoping that my entrepreneurship will take me to that.
Well, your path would be definitely in line with a lot of entrepreneurs who have created major foundations in the country. We talk about the Ford Foundation, the Carnegie Foundation. These are entrepreneurs who made a fortune in business and then gave it away.
Exactly.
So you definitely fit that pattern.
Well, I hope so.
Okay.
I hope so. I certainly watched.
At least a desire to do so.
Oh, that would be my hope and my dream.
Okay. So tell us, what is JoAnn Consulting?
JoAnn Consulting, what we do is, there's three phases of my business. Number one is a jury consultant, which is how I initially started, and that sort of evolved.
Okay, you're talking about jury trials. Okay, when you mention that, I think of that movie that came out a while back. What was the name of that movie?
Runaway Jury.
Runaway Jury. So is that what you do?
Well, you know what, Daniel? Lots of people ask me that, and it's really interesting because, yes, but that is an extreme version of what I do. But do we actually look at the jury and our prospective jurors and try to make a determination as to which juror will likely be fit the best profile for my client in terms of what they're doing? Yes, we do that. Quite often, attorneys will come to me, and what we do, just so that you understand and so that the audience understands what we do, is attorneys will come to me and they'll say, JoAnn, I have a case that's going to trial in a month or 6 months or a year from now, and I'd like for you to help us pick the best jury for our trial. Can you tell me who's our best juror? And I tell them, that's the $1 million question, and it's not quite so simple.
Okay.
So what I do is I have to realize the case, understand the facts and the issues involved in the case. I actually I have to think about the attorneys that are involved, literally.
So you help attorneys determine the best strategy for winning a case, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, that's part of it also. That's also part of it. But the fact finders, the 12 or 14 people that are seated on that jury are the ones that are going to make the ultimate decision, right? I mean, the lawyers can think what the value of their case, and by the way, most of my work is civil, not criminal. But lawyers can think all they want. They can have their own opinions about what their cases are, the value of their cases, and whether or not they can win or lose. But those 14 people that are seated on that jury box are the ultimate decision makers. And my role is to try to seat the best 14 people for my client's case.
Now that could potentially be worth millions and millions of dollars in a right case. Would you agree?
There could be. I think that the stakes could be millions and millions of dollars at risk, yes.
Okay, so you're in a field that is interesting because you have taken an industry or a field that entrepreneurs generally run away from, taxes and lawyers. You mentioned the IRS are attorneys and entrepreneurs run away. They're necessary evil, but you made a business of the litigation industry. So tell me, nationally, what is the litigation industry worth in dollars?
Billions. Billions of dollars. I mean, you've seen some enormous jury verdicts.
Yes.
And so, yes, I mean, being able to understand that, which is this other phase of my business, being able to understand what the true value of a case is really important. And that's the other service that we provide.
Okay, so you take a case and you kind of assess it and see what is worth or potentially what a jury would award.
Yes.
A litigant?
Yes.
Okay.
And so what we do is we do focus groups and we do mock trials in order to do that. So what happens is my company brings together 14 people that I believe could likely mirror a jury that could hear this case. So if have a jury trial in Roswell, we might do a focus group or a mock trial in Roswell. We're going to do one in Las Cruces. If the trial is going to be in Las Cruces, I try to mirror a Las Cruces jury, Santa Fe jury, etc.
I was going to ask you that. So how do you determine which people you're going to invite to be representative of the people where the case would take place?
Well, first off, we typically do our focus groups and our mock trials in the venue where the case is likely to be tried. So if a case is going to be tried in Santa Fe, they have to be Santa Fe residents. I try to make sure and bring together a cross-section of that community. And then I do my staff, which by the way, they're wonderful. My staff ask questions, ask the jury the type of voir dire questions that I know will likely either eliminate them from jury selection or the jury process, or that would allow them to be seated as jurors.
Okay.
Then we test the case to them.
Okay, so it sounds like runaway jury to me. That's what they did in the movie, right? Was that Tom Cruise in that film?
No, Gene Hackman.
Gene Hackman. Oh, definitely Gene Hackman.
Yeah,
right?
Gene Hackman. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember the movie all that well, Daniel.
I'm kidding with you.
Oh,
of course.
Okay.
Of course, but okay. So I want to switch tracks a little bit and go back to your American dream, because I think that's a fascinating aspect of why you're doing what you do. So when did you first become aware that you had an American dream?
Actually, it sort of evolved, but I will tell you that I've been in this profession 32 years. And I'm going to go back to something you said. You said people run away from lawyers. And I have to tell you that 32 years ago, when I stepped foot into a law firm, because I had to work in order to go to college to pay for school. So I had to work, and so first day I set foot in the law office, I knew that I wanted to be the best I could be. And I took an interest to the law, and I wanted to learn everything I possibly could about it. And
Was this a job in college or?
Yes.
So you got a job in a law firm?
Yes,
Okay.
I got a job in a law firm in Berlin.
Okay, doing what?
Berlin, as a legal secretary.
Okay.
And at the time, coming from my background, that was a prestigious position to be a legal secretary. But I'll tell you what, I've had some amazing clients, lawyers, attorneys that have promoted my business, and I owe a great deal of credit to them.
Well, you obviously develop relationships, and they wouldn't have promoted you and helped you with your career unless you made an impact on them as well. So your professionalism, of course, I'm sure came through, and your hard work and your work ethic is a big part of it. And I was being facetious about lawyers. I think lawyers are like Congress. Nobody likes Congress, but they like their congressman.
Right.
People don't like lawyers, but they like their lawyer, right?
Exactly. Well, they're their advocates. They're their advocates. And you know what, Daniel? I have to tell you that really, truly, my business has evolved here, but it wasn't by accident. It really was a lot of hard work.
Of course. Okay, well, I want to talk about that. So what I'm hearing you say is that you walked in, you got a job, and into a law firm, which you hadn't really thought about much before, but you felt in your element. Is that right?
I did.
Okay.
I really did.
And that's something that entrepreneurs have. It's like a lot of it, times we call it a gut feeling. But I think there's something about being in your element. And I don't know any other way to phrase that, but that's in an area of business, a field where you just feel a natural affinity. Is that right? You feel, I'm supposed to be here.
Right.
Okay, so you felt that walking in that first day.
Yes.
You worked. You were working your way through college.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was going to trials. I was in trials all the time. And
you enjoyed that?
Oh, are you kidding?
Really?
I loved it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
loved it.
Okay.
I just loved it. I loved, and of course, I had the best, I learned from the best lawyers in the state.
Okay.
Many of my colleagues throughout the state and certainly the ones that practice in New Mexico, I don't know for certain, but I believe I'm the only Hispanic jury consultant. I could be wrong, but I think that really helped me.
I can see how, and that even is true nationally. And I've dealt with national media companies and national advertisers, and it's changing. But Hispanics are not a homogeneous group. There's a major difference in, and I call the values. We share some values: faith, family, and frijoles. And the frijoles is a catch-all for culture.
Right.
But the frijoles in Hispanics, for example, in the New York area, are much different from Texas Hispanics.
Exactly.
Which are, again, there's distinctions in Miami Hispanics and California and New Mexico.
Absolutely.
So the good news is for national advertisers and businesses is that Hispanics are growing and we have $1.2 trillion in disposable income. The bad news is that you can't reach us all with just one ad
message.
or one message. So you have to pick. So good news and bad news nationally, but thank God that you are able to utilize your heritage and the knowledge and use that as an asset, and I think that's terrific.
Yeah, it was a bonus. It was a plus. It's certainly something that I could pitch to lawyers and say, I understand the culture. I understand the Native American, because I do have Native American in me as well. Okay. But so I understand that culture.
Okay. So you mentioned New Mexico as being the base of your operation, but you are actually expanded regionally or nationally. Tell me about that. Decisions One is what I'm talking about.
Decisions One, yes. Most recently, I've been conducting focus groups and mock trials and some jury selection in Colorado, as well as Texas. We've done some mock trials in Texas, Lubbock, and I picked a couple of juries in Dallas. In Arizona, I've done a few mock trials in Arizona as well. So right now, I'm just limited to the Southwest. I hope to expand. But I have a 17-year-old son who I want to spend as much time with him as possible and cherish this final couple of years.
That was my next series of questions, because which is, what role does family play in your business, in your life, in your career? And again, going back to Hispanic values, our faith, family, frijoles. So family is a strength, but sometimes a lot of companies ask me, so why aren't Hispanic businesses expanding on this global or national basis? And my answer is, that's not our goal a lot of the times.
Right.
Bigger is not always better. It's family. So tell me, what role does family play in your business?
Right. Well, you know what? In terms of my business, I try to, get them involved as much as possible. I will tell you that my daughter, who currently lives in Fort Worth and pursuing her graduate degree, doesn't have an interest in what I do. Again, we talk about, where you feel good about, and where you kind of fit in. So she's really not all that interested, but she grew up doing this. She grew up, I would take her with me to my focus groups and my mock trials, greet jurors, get them ready. So she understands the business. Okay. She understands the business. So she was involved. My son, I'm trying to get him involved, but he's just, right now, baseball is his life.
Sports.
But the one thing I think that they certainly have gathered from it is extreme hard work.
Okay.
Hard work and work ethic. If nothing else, if they don't take away anything else from me, I hope it's that. Okay,
I'm going to expand on that a little bit, because for people who have regular jobs, 9-to-5 jobs, and they find out that the person is self-employed and works for themselves and is their own boss, they think you're lucky because you can do what you want, you can get up as late as you want, and you have to have a strong work ethic to run a business, to run a successful business. In Hispanics, that's part of our culture, our work ethic. So tell me, where did you learn your work ethic, and how are you implementing it now in your business? How's that helping you now?
You know what, Daniel? Although
how many hours? Let me quick question. How many hours a day or a week do you work?
I would say on an average a week.
A week. Most people work 40 hours a week.
I would say on an average. I would work about 60 hours a week.
About 60 hours, okay.
And 60, some weeks are more than that. When we're in trial, they're very, very long days. Yeah. But on an average, I would say about 60 hours a week.
Okay. Do you take vacations, any time off?
You know what? My husband and I actually went on our first cruise in January. First vacation in 8 years. Just the two of us. We go baseball trips, but I don't know that those count.
Okay. Well, when you love what you do, you're almost always on vacation anyway, right?
You know what? I do. It's just I love what I do, and I don't fret over.
I'm always asked, why don't you go on vacation? Why don't you do that? I say, that would be work to me to
exactly
to take away what I love, what I do.
Right,
and
right.
That's an entrepreneur mindset. Entrepreneurs think differently from the population at large.
You know what, Daniel? I never really thought about it much because it was what I did.
Right.
Is working hard is always what I did. Always wanted to be the best paralegal. I wanted to be the best. Initially I wanted to be the best. Legal secretary. I wanted to be the best paralegal in the firm. I wanted to be.
So where does that come from?
You know what?
Wanting to be the best.
I have to tell you that the work ethic, I think wanting to be the best was something that came from me. It just was. It was just my personal makeup. Hard work came from, I have to tell you that my dad's mother, my grandma Regina, they had farms. They were farmers. My dad's family were farmers and ranchers. My mom's family were railroaders. But my dad's family, my grandmother Regina would wake up every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, and she would get on that horse, and she would go round up the cattle or the sheep or whatever. Right? She did. She did, Daniel. Then she'd come home and she'd fix breakfast for everybody. And then she'd go back out to the fields, and then she'd come back and fix lunch for everyone. And she was an amazing woman. She wasn't educated, but she was a hard worker. My dad was a really hard worker, and so was my mom. They made me work. By the time I was 11 years old, I was making tortillas for the family. I was fixing dinner before I go to my job and then study. It was just what I did.
That's just the lifestyle. It's work.
It was just what we did.
Okay, so it's paying off now.
It is.
Okay.
I think so.
So what does being an entrepreneur mean to you? We touched on that a little bit, but...
Being an entrepreneur means independence. Everyone knows that. It means independence and the ability to control work product. At the end of the day, if your work product, the product that you give to your client, whether you win or you lose a trial, if you know that you did the best that you could and you put every effort into it and you gave it every thought, at the end of the day, you can just feel good about that. But I tell you what, I have really high standards of the people that work with me. Okay. My jury monitors, my assistants.
How many people work with you in Decisions One?
Right now we have anywhere from 3 to 4 people that work with me. They make me successful too. Okay. I mean, I have to give credit to I have to give credit to them as well.
Okay. So I want to find out, where did this entrepreneurship that comes from with you start? I mean, did you have any businesses when you were growing up? When did you first want to be an entrepreneur?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I think I said it sort of evolved. So when
we left off, you were working, you got a job in a law firm,
right.
and you just fell in love with the trial system,
right,
I guess
exactly.
you call it.
And so when I was about 18 and a half years ago, my husband said, you really ought to go out on your own. You've got lots of contacts, lots of people like you. You've worked with so many lawyers. You have so much experience, trial experience. Go out on your own. And so he's the one that got me my first little computer, and he's the one that I owe a whole lot to. Okay. And he's probably one of my biggest fans. And he's the person that they got me out on my own 18 years ago, and of course kept up the hard work, and that's how my business started. So I picked a jury in Valencia County, where I'm originally from, and my lawyer said to me, you know what, you're pretty good at that. You have kind of an instinct for it. And I said, really? I said, well, I just sort of know the people. And so then word of mouth. I've never had to advertise. It's all been word of mouth from one attorney to another, and that's how my company evolved.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So how many cases have you been involved with over the years? And most importantly, what dollar amount do you think you've saved your clients or earned?
Yeah, because that's I do both plaintiff and defense work. Okay. So I work for both sides. Well, I started keeping track of my cases, the ones that I started where I was picking juries in 2003, I believe. Those are when I thought to myself, well, I probably ought to figure out what my what my success rate is or whatever.
Yeah.
And as of today, since 2003, I've probably had about 90 to 100, somewhere between 90 and 95 trials and 95 cases. I can't tell you how many, how much money I have saved or made. I've been involved in some big verdicts where I've helped the plaintiffs.
What are some of the larger verdicts in a dollar amount? You don't have to
dollar
mention
amounts. Let me see. $12 million verdict, that's most recent in Bernalillo County, had a $19 million verdict in Roswell. Another $19 million verdict in Bernalillo County.
Okay.
So we've had some success there, but I started out doing defense work, and that's where the 15 years as working in law firms was in the defense field. So probably 75% of my cases have been defense, and I'm pretty proud of my success rate.
Okay, very good. Well, you certainly, if I was an attorney and it was $1 million case, I mean, it makes sense to at least hire somebody like you to at least see what potentially their individuals are thinking about and what potentially is going to happen in the case. And has there been any kind of something that's come out of left field? Any surprises that maybe an attorney didn't realize they were going to walk into and you helped resolve?
Oh, yes. Not me personally, but my jurors.
Process?
Yes, my jurors. Oh, yes. I mean, we've had cases where the attorney and their client believe this is a win-win. I mean, we can't lose this case, but we're going to test it anyway just to make sure that we've covered all the angles. And when they actually tested it, they found that, oh my gosh, this case should never go to trial. And the jurors, their feedback made so much sense to the lawyers. The jurors' feedback or their impressions were nothing what the lawyers ever expected.
So you turned potentially, which was a loss, into a settlement of some sort.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
Exactly. So that's happened a lot, actually.
Okay. All right. Very good. So in the short time we have left, just tell me briefly, what are some of the challenges that you faced as an entrepreneur, starting a business, working in this particular field, and how have you overcome them?
Actually, the biggest challenge, Daniel, I think that I had is the doubt that I had in myself.
Okay.
Most of my colleagues have PhDs, and I always second guess whether or not I could compete, if you will, at the same level as them. But it was my husband who kept telling me, look, JoAnn, while you were in the courtroom, they were in the classroom, certainly not taking anything away from them. But that was probably my biggest challenge, is recognizing the experience that I had and the value that brought. For me, it was just something I did every day.
Right.
And so recognizing it for what it ultimately was, that's probably been my biggest challenge.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your story, and
I
want to thank our audience for joining us on this edition of American Dream Latin Souls. Be sure to visit us on the web at latinosuccess.com.